We are so glad you're back with us for the start of season 2. You are not going to want to miss this entire episode as we answer 2 listener questions. What are the implications in 2021 of pursuing a degree or online MBA? And how do people in leadership look at your graduate status? And how much does it mean to them? So stay tuned as Devon and I provide answers to those questions, and also make sure to stick around to the end so you can find out how to enter our next raffle. So continue to ride with us as we take it to the next level in season 2, More Than a Pod. Right about now, you are listening to the Legacy and Leadership Podcast, a show where we discuss living as a leader worth following, leading others to do the same, and in doing so, leaving a legacy for future generations. My name is Jimmy Gonzalez Jr., a learning and development professional and leadership coach, sitting down with my co-host, Anthony Devon Watts Jr., an expert contact center leader that has effectively led and developed dynamic teams with high motivation. Together, we have over 30 years experience in the corporate game. Join us as we discuss our growth as leaders, share the lessons we've learned, and interview others to see how their leadership style was shaped as they were mentored by adversity. Hello. Welcome to the Legacy and Leadership Podcast presented to you by the Legacy Leadership Learning Group. This is a show where we teach you really what it takes to live as a leader worth following, how to develop others to do the same, and in doing so, leave a legacy for generations to come. I am Jimmy Gonzalez Jr., along with my co-host, which I'm joined by, Anthony Devon Watts Jr. What's good, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm wonderful. It is a new year, and I'm excited about that. 2K21.
Yes,
and
sir.
if our folks have been following us for some time, if you noticed on season 1, I had the curls, and it was time. It was time to make a change. So I got a fresh cut from my barber, Jazz at Custom Cuts, out here in Pine
Shout
Hill.
out Jazz, man.
Shout out to my brother Jazz. Again, just felt like it was time to do something a little bit different. So I usually
Absolutely.
go in.
Hashtag New Year, New
There
You.
you go.
Right?
There you go. Hashtag New Year, New Me. So, but yeah, man, I'm feeling great. Had a really good day today. Had a good workout. Got a fresh cut. Spent some time, invested some time with my mom for like a good 3 hours, man, and just talking about goals for this new year. And just sharing, loving on one another, you know what I mean? And just soaking up time with my mom. So that was really good. And again, happy about the day, happy about where we're at, and excited, man. This is the first episode of season 2. So I'm excited about that. What about you? How you doing?
Yeah, man, I'm doing well too. Like you said, it's the first episode of season 2, the first episode of the new year, the first episode of this new journey that we're taking the Legacy Leadership Podcast on, and evolving that to be more than a pod, hashtag more than a pod, with the Legacy Leadership Learning Group. So yeah, man, like you, I'm super excited as well. The Oregon Ducks losing, not included in that. Just the timing of all that. But I've been able to work through it. We've been, kind of doing pre-production here for, about an hour and a half or so. So that's giving me some time to settle my spirit and get into the right mindset for us to tackle this podcast, man. But yeah, outside of that, man, I'm good, man. The kids are good. The missus is good. We bought in the New Year super low key. And it's funny, you were talking about like just, connecting with your moms, and you're talking about goals and all that good stuff. It was the missus' idea this year to bring in the new year with vision boards and some champagne, and so that's exactly what we did, like leading up to the ball drop, and then even after that, just going through magazines and kind of formulating our vision boards and getting those things put together. And it was the first year. It was the first year that I've ever spent a New Year's like that. Like usually it's either, you had the young years where you go out and you want to like party and experience things. And I did that for a little bit. And then you have the years as you mature a little bit, and then it's more intimate with family. Y'all just eating and hanging out and stuff like that. But this is the first year, obviously, because of, the Rona and all this other stuff. And we had just left Orlando, that we're like, we're going to keep it super low key. We're going to hang out at the crib, and let's just do something like ultimately intimate. And it was just her and myself and just kind of talking about our goals and our futures and our aspirations and committing that to paper, man. So I'm energized off of that too, man. I'm energized off of that too, to sit with my partner and for her and I to just kind of hash those things out and understand the things that she's trying to accomplish and the things that I'm trying to accomplish and the things we're trying to accomplish collectively, man. Like, that's just great energy to bring into 2021. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely. You mentioned writing them down, and I would tell all of our listeners out there, legacy leaders, again, you can follow both of us on Instagram, Devon at Leadership Docent. You can also follow me at Coach Jimmy G Jr. I actually just made a post earlier today about the importance of writing your goals down. So if you want to read it, go to Facebook, go to Instagram. You can find it on Facebook too. We'll go to Instagram again at Coach Jimmy G Jr. And make sure to follow us, the Legacy in Leadership podcast at Legacy Leadership. You can follow us there on Instagram and as well on Facebook at Legacy Leadership Community. Definitely on YouTube. We have our whole vanity URL is all set up. So Legacy in Leadership podcast on YouTube, on Facebook, and also on LinkedIn. Again, you can follow us on all of those social media platforms to continue to connect with us as we put out different types of content in those various places as well. So goals are important. We'll be actually talking about goals throughout, kind of the first few weeks as we go through this month of January. That's something that is highly important for success and trying to achieve what it is that you're looking to accomplish. So more to come on that, but yeah, make sure that you're writing down your goals and taking the proper steps. Because if not, then it's really just a dream, it's a thought, but you want to make sure that you put them down on paper and actually start taking action on those.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's funny too, because we actually, with our legacy leader community, started laying the foundation for goal setting and kind of tackling that into 2021 with the work we were doing with the Focus for Success webinar that we just came off of. And so for any of our listeners, if you were either following along with us for the Focus for Success Challenge, where we took our legacy leader community through a 21-day challenge where every single day we had a brand new challenge that help support our ability to focus, drive our ability to focus, because that's the foundation that you build kind of all of these other things on, right? Like being able to really lock in and clearly define what it is that you're trying to get after. Or if you've been following along on YouTube, on the periphery, you've just been watching some of the recap episodes that we've been dropping. Or if the first time you really got introduced to us was the most recent teaser that we dropped for season 2, where we touch a little bit on the Focus for Success Challenge. Again, in all of those areas, you're going to find that goal setting continues to come up as a consistent theme. But we start with focus and driving focus in our personal lives, in our business, just kind of all of those critical areas that you need to really be able to drive focus in before you can start establishing sound goals in those areas.
Absolutely. So we closed out season 1 and really kind of 2020 with the Focus for Success webinar, which led us to starting the Facebook community, which is Legacy Leader Community. So again, please go to Facebook if you're on that platform and join us where we can have more conversations and interact. And we have a lot more content and kind of exclusive stuff that's only for that community. So if you haven't joined us yet, again, go to Facebook, Legacy Leader Community. But when we started the community, my friend over here, my co-host, has not been, I don't know if he's never been on Facebook or just hasn't been on Facebook for a long time.
No, I was on Facebook as a jit.
Okay.
Like I was probably last on Facebook when I was like sophomore in high school, maybe.
Okay.
Sophomore in high school. So for those trying to size up my age, right? So that's probably about 16, 17 years ago or so. I'm 32, right? So we do like some quick math on that. Because I graduated at 17. Right. So you're talking about 16, 17 years ago. So obviously my Facebook content back then was a lot different than what it would be now as a 30-year-old man. But yeah, I don't know what it was. I think for the most part, I had no desire to, have like just any presence there, to be honest with you. Like it didn't feed anything for me. I didn't have a purpose, to be on there. And so, yeah, I was just, I don't know, it was just kind of thugging it out and being a loner and maybe even being a little bit of a rebel and, being like, no, man, I ain't on Facebook. But
we
as we've gone through this journey,
yes.
Yes, absolutely. Our legacy leader community gave me purpose. And what we're building, what we've been building from the Legacy and Leadership podcast to this Legacy Leadership Learning Group, which I know we'll talk a little bit more about for our listeners. But that gave me purpose. So the fact that we were going to be running this challenge and, obviously, both of us have to facilitate and participate, and we just want to be able to connect and convene. And I wanted to be able to connect with people so that I can get a better sense of who our listeners are and what they need, what our learners need, and then also so people can get some exposure to just kind of who I am outside of the podcast. I mean, I think, you'll co-sign this, like, what you get from me on audio and on video is 100% authentically me, right? But it's a time capsule, right? It's like you get me for an hour, and then after that, you got to wait till the next episode. So this was a great opportunity to just really be able to engage in real time, right? And do some live broadcasts and, to comment and engage and ask questions and provide perspective. So, yeah. Now, the unintended benefit of this entire process has been the fact that through this, I've been able to actually reconnect with a lot of folks. First and foremost, family members. Again, this past year, we recently made the move for the entire family down here to South Florida because I got a new opportunity. And so, Facebook obviously serves as a vehicle, and this is not an advertisement for Facebook, but we're just going to talk about how the platform works. But Facebook, if you hear this, cut the check. Facebook just served as a vehicle for me to be able to connect with family members, that are all over the place, Georgia, California, Jersey, New York, Baltimore, all these different places, so that they could, one, stay plugged into kind of what's going on with me, but more importantly, stay plugged in with what's going on with the kids, right? Like everybody just wants to, because again, the time just passes so quickly, and especially, I'm thinking about kind of around Lennox's age, man, the difference of 3 months is like night and day. He's like a totally different baby, a totally different person. He's a toddler now. He got his personality. So that's been cool. To be able to stay plugged in and kind of find out what's going on with the family members that I care and I love for, and vice versa. But then also I started to get reconnected with some of these folks that knew me on Facebook from high school back when I was on 16, 17 years ago. And the cool thing about that is they've gotten exposure to what we've been building. They've also gotten some exposure to kind of the journey that I've been on in my career, because for most of these folks, the last time they saw of me or heard from me was when I was getting ready to go off to college. They knew that, hey, I've been an athlete. I accepted a scholarship. Okay, he's going to go off to college and he's going to play ball, and then that's kind of the end of it, right? From their perspective. And so now to come back full circle and it's like, okay, well, what has ever happened to him? And so that was really cool. And I think one of the most impactful, folks that I've been able to just kind of rekindle with or reconnect with is a former classmate who's currently a doctor or in residency to finish up his doctorate. And like he just started consuming some of the challenge content, but also the podcast content. He went back to the YouTube and he just started, consuming that stuff. And it really started to resonate with him because he's also making this decision right now. Like, okay, after my doctorate, I want to continue to go to school. And I'm not surprised by this because this cat is like super, he was always super, super sharp, just super, super bright, super ambitious, hungry. In fact, he also has him and a couple of friends actually won a contest for basically like an innovation grant, and they were able to use their winnings from that contest to start up a nanotech company that they've been slowly building, right? That specializes in kind of the medical space. Obviously, him and a couple other folks that are passionate about that started this nanotech company. They share laboratories out of FSU. And they're kind of on this journey of building that as well, right? And so, he's been telling himself like, hey, I think I want to go back to school to get my MBA. And so after consuming our podcast, he just kind of reached out to me. He's like, "Hey man, I love the content. I love the chemistry between you and your co-host." Right? He's like, but I wanted to know if you guys had anything talking about the value of traditional education and how do people in leadership roles view that these days? Like, has it changed? Like, does it make sense for me to get my MBA? Is there value in it? Is there not value in it? Is it going to make or break me? Right. And so just a litany of these questions. And I thought, man, it's kind of, appropriate, or appropriate timing, right? Like, just kind of the perfect timing to start broaching those discussions, given the trajectory that we're on with what we've been building out with the Legacy Leadership Learning Group. And so I will go into this, like, before we start just kind of sharing our thoughts on this, that obviously, as with all of this content, this is our thoughts rooted in our experiences and the things that we've been able to see firsthand and the decisions that we've been able to make in the rooms that we've been in, right? Obviously, this is not a blanket, application for anybody else that's like kind of going out there. You obviously you have to make the decision that's in the best interest for you and your family. But I'd be more than glad, and I think we both be more than glad to kind of talk about our experiences over this journey in corporate America and how those decisions are being made and how people talk about those things. And God, for both of us having over a decade of hiring decisions under our belt. I mean, we've hired hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people between the two of us. Personally, that's not including the thousands that we've been ultimately responsible for through our down chain and just helping, develop people and set standards for what we want in our organization. I felt like it was perfect timing to kind of talk about those things. And so, I guess, kind of jumping into it, from your perspective, like how do you feel, and I think probably now more than ever, how do you feel education or the way that companies are assessing the value of education has shifted, when you look at traditional versus non-traditional education? And when I say non-traditional, for our audience, what I'm talking about is not just apprenticeships or hands-on experience, but also certification, specialized certifications, right? Attending classes, attending seminars, those type of things, as opposed to, I'm going to sign up for, ABC University, and I'm going to, pay them, for multiple semesters to get my degree in something.
I would lean on even one of my most recent experiences at my last employer, and going through the process of trying to hire an instructional designer. And as I'm going through that process and taking a look at hundreds of resumes, especially during the time, a lot of folks in the learning and development space, that's typically, it's one of the first things that tends to get cut when times are hard, especially as everything that transpired last year within the pandemic. So again, a lot of different folks that were out there looking for work. The good thing about that, at least the bright side that I looked at, is that I really felt that there was going to be some really talented people out there that I would be able to connect with, and hopefully, again, I only had one spot to fill, but be able to make the right choice and bring that person on. And through that process, I met a lot of people that, and it's funny in this particular example, a lot of people seemingly tend to kind of fall into instructional design. And basically, even for our legacy leaders that maybe not have a full context of that particular role, but instructional designers create learning content, whether that is e-learning courses, instructor-led courses, but if you go to a particular course, whether it's through your company or in school, or you purchase something online, there's an instructional designer, or nowadays they're called learning experience designers, that created that content and packaged it up. So a lot of people have kind of fallen into instructional design, and while I don't consider myself an instructional designer by title, I've kind of been the same way. Just through my growth in this learning and development space, it was something that I found an appreciation for and wanted to learn more about. So a lot of the folks that I met didn't necessarily have degrees. Maybe they had a degree in education. There's a lot of teachers that are now making that switch to instructional design. So it's not that
I
they
can
didn't
see that.
have a degree, but they didn't have a degree, which nowadays you can get in instructional design. But some of them had experience, and they had certifications. There's a number of organizations out there. One of the more prevalent ones is ATD, which is Association for Talent Development, and there's a litany of certifications that you can get. One of those being on instructional design, and kind of learning that process and what that really means to kind of go through some of the principles that are within instructional design. So I found a lot of the folks that I was coming across had those. Now, having said that, again, for me and what I was looking for, while I thought that was important, it was also important, again, in context of this particular role, to also see like what type of work have they done. And for these type of roles, a lot of folks have online portfolios. They might have a website or some place where they can send you where you can see examples of their work, whether that's on their social media. Maybe they have a YouTube channel that they've created to be able to see some of the things that they've created, either just as projects or maybe even work that they've done for other companies or as a freelancer and stuff like that. So for me personally, as a leader, and even in my own personal life, man, like I have a degree in business economics. Now I'm in business, so I mean, it's played, but the economics portion, like I never went into finance. I found myself in call centers, and up until recently, like my career over 20 years, was in call centers. And my degree, besides, again, the business and kind of management piece, didn't necessarily have anything to do with that. But what I found is, even it's not always about necessarily the degree. What I appreciate about having that, and when I see people that have a BA or have gotten their master's, it just shows the dedication and the will that it takes, especially as an adult or a young adult, to say, hey, I have other things going on in my life, but I'm still going to dedicate and invest this time into getting this done. So I appreciate that because I've seen it in my own life and I've seen it in other folks. But I've also seen people like my co-host that have done phenomenal in the workplace and don't, I know you're still working on it, but even a very good friend and former boss, Richard, spent 20 years, invested 20 years in his career and hasn't gotten a piece of paper yet, but has done phenomenal in his career. My father, right now, is 63 years old and he's working on getting his bachelor's. He's retired. He's just doing it as a goal and to get it accomplished. But my father was an executive in corporate America for Prudential for many, many years, and never even, he went back and got like his GED, but never even really officially, finished high school like that. So I've just seen so many examples of people excelling in their career through hard work, through grit. Of course, there's intelligence, and the will to want to learn more and study and know your craft, know the business that you're in, and know the people. Again, that have just found extreme and phenomenal success, not necessarily having a degree. And in this day and age, there's so many technical schools. There are certifications that you can get. That depending on what it is that you're trying to do, like I don't think that it holds as much weight today as it did, 5, 10, 15 years ago. Even as a parent, like it was drilled in my head, you're going to college, you're going to college. Like that's all I knew. Now, both of my adults and young adults are in college, but like if they decided to do something else, I wouldn't necessarily be mad at that as long as we had a specific plan in place in regards to how, what kind of career they were going to go into and how they were going to be able to get there. But I just don't think that the having a degree is as important today as it was, in the years past.
Yeah. So it's funny too. One of the things that you touched on, and I think there's definitely some causation there, right? You said that a lot of organizations, from a learning development perspective, they tend to, be stingy. I'll call it stingy. Some people may say frugal. I'm going to say stingy in terms of their investment in the learning space. And I think because of that, that causes a lot of folks to unintentionally end up in the instructional design space because you're combining a lot of these roles, right? Like, well, I got to deliver the content. They want me to train this. Somebody got to make it. Well, it got to be me. It can't be anybody else. And so I got to learn some of these things in order to fulfill my commitment. But and just in terms of your overall sentiment, yeah, I think there's a lot of notes that you've touched on that I would agree with. And it's funny too, because man, I was just having this conversation, not directly with Pops when we were up in Orlando for Christmas, and just kind of talking about the things that we got going on between the Legacy Leadership Learning Group, and then talking about the things that I got going on, from a work perspective, right, from a corporate perspective. And then, again, generational wealth, and just we were touching on all of these things, right? Like we normally do when we, catch up. And he's like, bruh, let me tell you this, man. If I had known that your career and life would be playing out the way that it is currently back when you came home after the first semester at Colgate University and said, I'm not going back to school. He's like, I would have helped you move. I would have been, bro, hey, let's do it. I'll help you move. Because at the time, obviously, I think much like Liam, like you, it was just instilled in him this thought process you need to get your like you have to go to college. And especially for my father, it was funny because when he graduated high school, well, he actually he got his GED. So he got his GED and then he immediately started working. Right. And he's always had this desire to go to school to get his college degree. But he just didn't have the means. He ended up joining law enforcement. He ended up joining the military. He ended up leveraging his GI Bill once he ended up doing, I think he did like 10. Once he ended up doing 10 with the Army to fund his education. Right. And then this bro, like he goes to school professionally. Again, he has his his bachelor's in public administration, his master's in public administration. He's working on his bachelor's in nursing. He has his associates in nursing. Again, he's a bookworm for sure, right? But it's because, that was always instilled in him. My grandfather, his father, has his doctorate in theology. Mm-hmm. My grandpa Watts. And so he's like, well, you got to go to school. And so me, being the firstborn and all that good stuff, and he's like, hey, you got to go to college. And I did it for a semester, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going back there. And bruh, if I can go back to that moment and how that played out, and just the struggle that my parents had, but also I commend them on the level of support and love that they showed in that moment, where they were like, all right, well, I don't agree with this, but this is also your life. And so if you're going to do this, then what is your game plan? Right. And so I think it's crazy how timing works out, because I think the other thing you touched on, the value has shifted over the past 15 years or so. And I want to be clear, I'm a huge proponent. If folks have a desire and aspiration to get their college education, get their college degree, I support absolutely. That. I believe in it. I understand the value of it. It absolutely does help to open up doors for you or get you a seat at the table so you can demonstrate kind of what you bring to the table and your skill set and the whole nine. Right. And so I'm a supporter of that, but I am also in the camp, because I've lived it. I've experienced that piece of paper is not a reflection of your intelligence, your intellect, your ability to produce or perform for the organization. I've been in plenty of rooms with people with high level degrees, and they are looking to me for solutions and to deliver because they can't. Right. And I've seen that, with our good friend Richard as well. Right. So, but I think, especially around about 15 years ago, coming off of the economic downturn and all of that, I think a lot of organizations, and especially leaders, they started to recalibrate how they assess the value of traditional education in comparison to hands-on experience and apprenticeship. And I think we've continued to kind of see that recalibration become the new norm over these past 15 years. Because the organizations have immediately saw the fruit of making that adjustment. It used to be back in the day, you get, the person who has the degree, the piece of paper, with no prior experience, but they studied the theory of these things, and you would immediately bring them into some of these high level roles, and you'd say, okay, well, all right, we're willing to teach you how to lead and to teach you the business because you have this degree, right? And so you've earned your ticket there. And I think at the time of the economic downturn, where companies didn't have the opportunity to take those type of gambles, calculated gambles or calculated risk, but they didn't have the opportunity because you didn't even know if you were going to make it to the next quarter, right, or the next 2 quarters, right, before you're facing bankruptcy. They started to go with proven people, proven experience, hands-on experience that they could trust in, right, because they needed some type of baseline of stability, all right. Because they didn't have the opportunity to make as many mistakes. And so I think a lot of organizations started to recalibrate and say, okay, well, what value do you put in experience, right? Maybe it used to be 70% traditional education, 30% experience. Well, now that's kind of flipped, right? And now it's 70 experience and maybe 30% traditional education, right? Or some form of education. And then I think along that path, as you had so many people that were displaced because of the economic downturn during that time, because I vividly recall this, that a lot of these schools started spinning up adult learning supplements, right? Like certificates and things like that to help people make the transition from whatever industry they were in to a new industry, right? So you started seeing all these like IT certifications and stuff like that, because as companies started to go more digital and building out the kind of that infrastructure, they needed people who understood networking, they needed people who understood servers, they needed people who understood Cisco. Absolutely. And so, right, so instead of doing like 4 years of that, they were like, okay, well, can we do some of these quick hit certifications and apprenticeships? And then over time, I think people started to realize that, hey, that's a proven viable model for developing and investing in yourself, right? And investing in your employees. And then the suite of offerings started to expand beyond just some of those technical certifications. And then you started seeing companies offer things up like leadership certifications and training certifications and kind of all of these different things. And so, yeah, I would just say kind of where we're at today, if you are not in a highly specialized field, right? Like, you know, I don't know about you. I ain't going to feel comfortable going to a doctor that did not actually do their residency and get their doctorate, right? And there's like, no, man, I was apprenticing. You know what I mean? I used to hang out around the podiatrist and just, you know, watch them work on feet. You know what I mean? And then I learned everything I needed to know about hearts. So like, I'm not going to be cool with that, right? So if you're in a highly specialized industry, then absolutely, like, there's a tremendous amount of value. But I think, and this may be passe to say, but I know what I see. I believe it because I see it. In business is not a highly specialized field. Like if you're finance, okay, yeah, finance, that's a little bit different, right? We're talking about numbers, we're talking about accounting, and even then you don't need like high level degrees in order to be effective there. But if you're talking about operational leadership, if you're talking about driving results, you're talking about leading people, and it doesn't matter what space, right? Whether you're in the office setting, whether you're in, contact centers, whether you're in fulfillment centers, some of the people that I've seen perform the best are the folks that have demonstrated a high level of effort, hard work, intelligence, right? Hell, one of the best human resource partners I've ever had. One of the best, like literally would be up there, like one or two. Like, hey, if I had another opportunity to work with this individual, I'm hitting them up. Didn't even have their degree in human resources. They had a degree in theology. You know what I mean? Like, and I hold that individual as the gold standard to me one of the gold standards to me of a human resource professional and somebody that I would always have the opportunity, love to have the opportunity to work with, right? And it's because she showed hard work, high emotional intelligence, ability to communicate effectively, organizational skills, like all of those things that you don't need to have a degree in human resources in order to learn or master. So, yeah, I would just say that based off of my experiences, there's value there, but it's definitely been recalibrated. And I think that there are a lot of avenues for people to continue to invest in themselves without jumping off the, kind of jumping off the cliff of saying, hey, I'm going to go to a 4-year college, public or private, and, take on $200,000 worth of debt, right? Because that's going to jumpstart my career. I've seen people that have focused on more specialization, more certifications, more of those type of forms of education, those non-traditional forms of educations, and that's helped accelerate not just their career but also their earning potential a lot quicker than maybe some others who have gone a different route.
Well, that's part of the challenge too, right? Is the cost of higher education these days, and if you can get into the workforce, gain some experience, maybe even get with a company that has those type of benefits where they'll pay for your education, then obviously that's great. But what I've seen with you, what I've seen again, and shout out to Pops, to Big Jim, for doing his thing right now and on a mission to even catch his grandkids and either graduate at the same time or maybe even graduate before one of them. So we'll see what happens over the next 6 months or so. But the experience that you had, and we are no affiliation with any of these well, actually, I am affiliated with ATD, the Association for Talent Development, but Western Governor University. My stepmom works for there. Again, you've gone there. My dad is going there now. And it's amazing because of the experience that you have, real world experience, like you're able to knock out those classes sometimes in a matter of days, or, even in a day. You read some stuff, you take a test, and because you've done it, you're able to take that test and accelerate you receiving your education, or receiving the paper.
Right. I was going to say, just real quick, in a year, bro, like just to put in perspective, in a year of WGU, I went from being a freshman to my junior year.
My dad has done the same thing. Now he's retired. I mean, you were working, so then, kudos to you. But I mean, my man has been putting in the work. You were doing the same. I was amazed at how fast you were going through those things. But how much money as an individual you're able to save yourself. So it's a different route, but you still achieve that part and that goal of getting that degree, but either have paying a lot less with it, even again, depending on the situation, having your company pay for it. And like you said a little while ago, you're accelerating your earning potential because you're already in the workforce. So there's just, so many benefits. And again, there's no right or wrong. It's a topic, right? It's a discussion. It depends on that person's path and where they're at. But it's the money. But what I also, sometimes I'm all for certifications, and you and I are having conversations about certain certifications that we want to get to be able to provide different services and offerings to our legacy leader community. But sometimes I've even seen companies, like, it's not even so much the degree they're asking for the degree, but it is those certifications in the learning and development space and HR. And as I was going through my process of looking for another place to land over the last several months, really last year, really taking a look at that and seeing how much sometimes they're kind of over indexing on these certifications. And it's like, well, I don't have it yet, but I know I can do that work because I've been doing it, and I can give you proof. I can give you examples. I can tell you specific stories and examples and results of how I've been able to do those things and help and benefit a company. But sometimes, again, especially when there's hundreds and hundreds, sometimes thousands of people applying, like they're, sticklers for, this is what we're looking for. And if you don't have that, like, you don't even kind of get, your resume, kind of get your foot into the door. So
yeah, that is one area, like I've said, is a little bit challenging, but it's a reality, right? I think to your point, where it used to be 15 years ago, a lot of organizations were sticklers around, like, nah, like, we just need, like, you need to have your degree. Like, we need your bachelor's degree, period. I don't care how long you've been doing something similar for 10 years. And then you slowly started to see organizations evolve, and their job descriptions or job listings, postings started to change to say, hey, 4-year degree or 8 years worth of experience in the specific field doing the role. I think you've started to your point, start to see organizations over-index sometimes on the value of those certifications, right? And it's starting to almost the pendulum has swung almost in the opposite direction, where now, okay, you're being a little bit too much of a stickler again on the certification, right? There's value in the experience. Like, truly look at my resume, my portfolio, my offerings, all of these things that I'm sharing with you. No, I don't have a certification in XYZ, but clearly, where's my acumen, my knowledge, when I'm able to produce all of these things, right? Using the same tools that you're asking me to have a certification in. I'm self-taught, right? I'm self-taught, right? So the amount of hours that I've put in on, Beyond or whatever the case may be is equivalent or maybe double the amount of hours I would have spent getting the certification, right? But I have a real world product to produce.
Exactly.
Right. And so, that's always a pain point. I don't think, to be fair, I don't think any organization is ever going to 100% get it right, because I think the other thing that people have to realize is that a lot of these decisions around, how we place values, or organizations are placing value on what they're looking for in the talent discovery process, is largely a reflection of their experiences, right? And so for me, right, I'm more open to digging into somebody's experience and not necessarily looking at traditional education, because I know my story. I know the story of people that have mentored me, right? And so I see those individuals that did not have traditional education that are sharp as hell. And so I'm always thinking, well, damn, is there another Richard here? Is there another Alan here? Is there another, you know what I mean? Is there another Matt here? Is there another Devon here? Right? Is there another one of these type of individuals that could potentially be in my talent pool that I would be missing out on, because I'm looking to see if only this box is checked? Like, you have to look at the totality of somebody's experience, as you're assessing these things. And so,
And then, we've seen examples too of people who have experience, who have the master's degree, have the MBA, but still sometimes kind of find themselves, in a spot where they're maybe a little stuck, or they're kind of capped on the growth, of their career, which is why it's also important, whether you're doing that, kind of if you're already established in your career, or if you're straight out of high school going to college to get, your degree and then maybe a master's or MBA. It's the things like focus for success. How do you really, they don't teach you that in college. One of the biggest, topics over the last few years, right? It's not about the IQ, it's about the EQ. So maybe you have all of the book knowledge and you have some experience, but do you have the emotional intelligence to really connect with people and to kind of capture, people's hearts, and just be able to understand how people's emotions work in the workplace, especially as generations have grown and just changed over the last 10 to 15 years. It's those soft skills as well that you don't always necessarily get in college. You get communication, you might get learning how to do speeches and stuff like that, but it's what I found, it's through certifications and online courses that I've taken as well that have helped to sharpen some of those skills. And if you're blessed, because we've taught some of those things at times, in the workplace, if you're blessed to be able to get some of that, then again, kudos, because you're working for a really great company that sees those type of things. But again, we're talking about going to school before you actually get into the workplace that might be providing you with some of those things. And that you can see that sometimes the damage, in that you can't come back from mistakes, but that it causes in people's relationships. And again, maybe even their growth and trajectory, because they maybe lack some of those things. They got the paper, but they lack some of those other soft skills that you need to combine with the experience to really be successful and excel, in the workspace.
Well, yeah, man. I think for both of us, we've seen kind of how that's played out from time to time, where you have somebody who may be book smart but not street smart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they get around people, and kind of the relationship component that's so critical for the relationships and the communication and the emotional intelligence that's critical towards moving business forward, right? And we've, people, if you've been following us, you've listened to season 1, we talk about we talk a little bit about culture, eating strategy. I think in that episode specifically, where we call out like how people are assessing you on two things, right? A combination of rapport and competency. And so we've been in those situations where we've brought on somebody on board, and they have all the competency in the world, all the degrees, all the certifications, all of this other stuff, right? But they don't have the rapport, they don't have the street smarts in terms of like, well, how do you communicate effectively? Like understanding the nuances of, you know, reading people from an emotional perspective and gauging where people are at before you start providing feedback or directive, and, you know, how to navigate difficult conversations. And I think it's funny because that's probably the biggest misconception when it comes to you know, education and teaching yourself. There's been this thought process that these skills, these soft skills, are like, you're just blessed with them. Like people just have, like, you know what I mean? Like I've had people that have tried to discredit, or maybe intentionally or unintentionally try to discredit the EQ or the communication skills that I've honed over my career by just saying, well, like, you were born with that. Like, oh, all right, I was blessed with the absence of fear in communication. Like that's what I was born with. Like nobody ever told me I needed to shut up, right? So like that was not a fear for me. But how to communicate, how to get messages across, how to understand if people are comprehending, taking that feedback, adjusting your communication style, that's not something I was blessed with. I learned that.
Yeah.
Right. I spent time to learn that, and you can learn these things too. Right. And much like how you hear people talking about, high school, they want to teach me Pythagorean theorem, but nobody wants to teach me how to do my taxes. Right. Because it comes down to like this theory of what you need to know versus the practicality of knowing how to do your taxes, right? Well, I think it's the same is true when you talk about education in the business space, in the leadership space, right? There's a lot of theory on, we're gonna do an entire course on supply chain management. That's important. That is absolutely important. There should also be an entire course dedicated to emotional intelligence, to facilitating meetings, right? To navigating difficult conversations and delivering performance actions. Because I can tell you right now, when I was going through school, that didn't exist. All of that stuff I learned on the job by having people blow up in my face, cuss me out, right? Challenge me, and I've had to learn to refine those things over time. And as I've learned those things, I've tried to be intentional about teaching my leadership team those things so that they don't have to get that experience the same way I did. But again, those things can be taught. And so there's a lot of value in making the investment and pursuing that type of education. If you're a leader in a corporate America, or you're running your own business, you're an entrepreneur, because everything comes down to relationships and those attributes that we've kind of talked about that unfortunately do not get taught today.
Absolutely. So we've seen it, in 2020, because it's now 2021, as the pandemic hit and life just changed for all of us in so many ways. But we saw, there were some organizations and companies out there that were already, starting to provide education in different ways. We have, again, our LinkedIn page for our LinkedIn pros out there that are part of this legacy leader community. There's LinkedIn Learning. You mentioned it earlier, companies like Google and Microsoft started to create, are in the process still of creating kind of their own certifications and courses that, again, are different from the typical education that you may get, in college itself. Platforms like Udemy, there's a number of online courses, and just even YouTube, so much information that you can learn from YouTube for free.
YouTube University,
exactly. So you have all of these programs that are starting to really take off even more because people they're home, they can't go to school, or because of situations and how the workforce has changed. People are having to reinvent themselves. And maybe they don't have, again, they can't just go to school. Schools are shut down now anyway, as far as going to school itself. But how do I use platforms like that and use opportunities like that again to gain some of the skills that we were just talking about, and still have to make an investment, but make a lower cost investment, one that's lower cost and that I can get done in a shorter amount of time, as opposed to investing the 4 years to get a degree, or if I don't have one yet, or maybe going back to school and getting my MBA, which again, that really, as we were seeing that in the marketplace, within the world, in our own individual experiences, that was one of the things that really kind of led us to where we're at right now. And as we get into season 2, and the name of the season is More Than a Pod, and really just talking about not just Legacy and Leadership Podcast, but the Legacy Leadership Learning Group. So I wanted you to kind of dive into that a little bit too, and off of the heels of the Focus for Success webinar, and we've been hinting at it, but the additional content that we're putting together right now, we got more to come, but that we're putting together right now, again, specifically helping people to really develop that laser-like focus so that they can truly achieve the goals that they're looking to achieve. Providing productivity secrets, how do you really diffuse all of the distractions that are around you so that you can focus on your goals, focus on your career, and even if you are in school, how do you focus on accomplishing that and getting your degree done so that you're saving as much money as possible, you're accelerating that process, and you're getting to that next level and that next step in the proper amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, kind of like you said, it just seems like the momentum and the feedback that we've been getting has kind of culminated in us, heading down this direction of officially launching the Legacy Leadership Learning Group. We were blessed enough to be able to officially birth that baby. His birth date is December 10th of 2020, and launching that partnership group to focus on providing services specifically catered to professionals, entrepreneurs around the leadership space and learning space, right? And to be able to deliver some of these soft skills, and certifications so that you can enrich yourself, enrich your skill set, whether you're an intrapreneur or an entrepreneur, with skills that are going to be needed in either of those industries, like regardless of what industry you're pursuing, right? And having gone through this process myself personally, I've gotten a litany of certifications from different organizations, and so I can tell you a little bit about most of the learning experiences that exist. Whether it was to get my green belt in Six Sigma, which was entirely, user led. And, I got a bunch of PDFs, and basically it was like, hey, read this whenever you want to, whenever you get to, and whenever you think enough, then go ahead and take the test in order to get your certification for your green belt. And I was fortunate enough to do that. But again, that wasn't easy. I was able to do that a couple of years ago, but that wasn't easy at the time, getting my green belt, my yellow belt, my white belt, or even more recently, getting some investment from my current organization from a development perspective to say, hey, we want you to connect with this company, and they're going to give you a class on operational program management, right? And going through that and being in the room with other professionals from different industries, and seeing that experience, and while that was facilitator led, one of the things that I felt was lacking in my experience was a lot of the real world application and feedback or training from somebody that's rooted in I've done these things. And it's not necessarily the theory of these things, right? I found myself, and I found a lot of the value, to be honest with you, was in the exchanges I had with myself and with other members that were being trained, more so than what was being facilitated to us, right? And so, I know, kind of given our experiences, both in the learning space and in the operational space, and whether it's customer service or sales or all of these different, experiences that we've had over these past couple of years of our career, we have experience not only, facilitating and training and developing people on these skill sets, but we also have the real world experience to back it and to talk about these situations and how it actually played out. Not a theory, not how I think it may go, but how it actually went. Right. And what did we do in those situations? And so, through those experiences, through that feedback, through this journey, the Legacy Leadership Learning Group was born. And so when we talk about being more than a podcast, it's exactly that. Again, we're building out a e-learning course, e-learning page where we'll have e-learning courses where you'll be able to make an investment in yourself, an investment in enriching yourself as a leader, as an entrepreneur, right? To learn these skills, a lot of these soft skills that are critically important if you're talking about accelerating your impact, accelerating your influence, growing your business exponentially, all of these things. I've been fortunate enough, we've both been fortunate enough actually, like I said, to not only use these things in the corporate space, but even with small business owners. You and I both, having small business owners reach out to us and ask for guidance on, leadership and their business and marketing and all these different things, right? And the fact that these courses, these things that we're going to be teaching have been proven in those spaces, I think is what creates the value for our legacy leaders and folks that are willing to make that investment and enrich themselves. So we're super excited to be able to bring this to you guys. We really are. And I think anybody that has the experience of either working directly with us over our careers, or if you participated in the Focus Challenge and the webinar, or you just seen the groundwork we've been laying over the past 6 months, I think the one thing that's crystal clear is we do not do any of this half-ass. We are extremely passionate about these topics. We are extremely committed to being able to invest in folks and to help see them grow and help enrich their skill set. And so we're not cutting any corners by any stretch of the imagination. You're going to get some high quality content, some high quality learning content, things that are going to be self-paced, video-based, facilitator-led. We're even in the process right now of working towards being able to, kind of do a la carte training for larger organizations. I've had the opportunity to, recently do a leadership seminar with Orange County for their jails a couple of months back. And so being able to do more things like that for public and private organizations is something that, we're going to be accomplishing here in 2021. And so, I'm really excited for, what we have to offer.
Absolutely. So for our legacy leaders out there, again, if you've been really thinking about, what do they mean when they say more than a pod or hashtag more than a pod? Devon just laid it out for you right there. And not just even soft skills. Even with the Focus Success, there's specific productivity tools that you're going to be able to learn as you go through that course. So it's soft skills, technical skills that will, again, in this particular course, that will be bundled up together. And also want you to remind our folks, so that's going to be officially launching and available on the 18th. But right now, to launch and celebrate the beginning of our season, we're actually be doing a raffle where 4 lucky legacy leaders, we are going to pay for your Focus for Success e-learning course. So it's about $150 worth of content, and again, productivity tools and video courses that you're going to be able to go through to learn these different soft skills and technical skills, again, to help you really develop that laser-like focus so that you can achieve the goals that you want to achieve for yourself in 2021. And it's not free. We're going to be paying for it for you, for 4 lucky folks. So go ahead and remind us of how our listeners out there can actually be involved in this raffle and make sure that their name is in there.
Absolutely, man. So super simple, super simple. The cost of entry is a very low bar because all it is support. So if you go to our YouTube channel, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you go back to the teaser video, I guess we can include it in this video as well, right? So if you go to the teaser video, or if you are watching this episode on YouTube, and you go to the link that is in the description, right? That link will take you to a landing page where you can fill out where you can fill out your email address, provide your email address, confirm that you subscribe to the YouTube channel, because that's critically important for us as well, right? And then your name, and that's it. And then we'll be conducting the raffle based off of that information. And then once we have our 4 lucky winners that we are going to sponsor for this Focus for Success, e-learning course, we will make the announcement. We'll make sure that you guys have access to the course. And yeah, you can, invest in yourself to start 2021 off right.
Awesome. For sure. So go ahead and break down for our folks just kind of some main points, that you took away from the conversation today.
Sure. So, a couple things that really stood out to me. I think the value of traditional education versus non-traditional education, again, specialized learning or apprenticeships, has definitely shifted over the past 15 years. It's largely a reflection of companies looking to mitigate risk and make investment in folks that they know are going to be proven commodities based off of their work experience. But again, it's not exact, right? And you obviously have to make the decision that's best for you and your family as you pursue these things. Obviously, that impact does not necessarily extend to some of these specialized skills. Again, nobody wants somebody who learned being a doctor, right, through YouTube videos only, right, no matter how great YouTube University may be, right? And that, kind of based off of our experiences, through these past 6 months, in response to the evolution that has been occurring in the industry of the value of non-traditional learning, more specialized learning, I'll call it that, more specialized learning, right, more a la carte learning, that we felt compelled to be able to offer up our experiences, our expertise in that space as well, by launching the Legacy Leadership Learning Group, and that to celebrate the birth of this new child, this new baby, right, we are willing to sponsor 4 individuals to have access to the very first e-learning course being offered by the Legacy Leadership Learning Group. And that entry is super, super simple. Go to YouTube, subscribe, fill out the form. It's that simple. We're going to run the raffle. We'll find our 4 winners, and we're going to make sure that you guys have access so that you can enrich yourself going into 2021.
Absolutely. And also know that while we're very confident in our skill set, like this is not just Devon and myself, L3G, it's not just the 2 of us. We have an official partner, learning experience designer, which is Ricardo Bernias. We also have another instructional designer, Mary, that has joined the team as well. So we have a few folks, man, that we've built up over the last couple of months to really help us, again, bring you not just a course, but really bring you an experience that's going to be able to help you to develop a new skill and really know and feel like you've transformed from the beginning to the end of that experience in that course that you're investing in. So very excited about that. Again, be on the lookout. Just excited about the team that, again, is being formulated and what we're building for all of you guys. Obviously, we're very passionate about this. We're educators, we're speakers. And we definitely enjoy and have a passion for what we're doing and helping to people develop, again, what it really means to live as a leader worth following. How do you develop other people to do the same? And then in doing so, leaving a legacy for future generations. So to all of our legacy leaders, thank you for listening. Again, please show us some love. Make sure that you comment, that you like, and you subscribe to the channel. Comment, like the actual podcast episode itself. And if you want to contact us and connect with us, it's very easy to do that. You can go to our Facebook community, which is Legacy Leader Community. Again, you can join us in there. We've been kind of off the last couple of days, but as we get started tomorrow in the new week, we're going to be definitely, again, continuing to ratchet up the communication and the different things that we're doing in that community. Again, exclusive kind of first looks at some of the content that we're going to be putting out there, the challenges, all of those things happen within that community. Again, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Legacy Leadership, and then LinkedIn, Facebook, Legacy in Leadership podcast, and of course for our viewers on YouTube, youtube.com/Legacy in Leadership podcast, and then we're on all major podcast platforms. Wherever again you prefer to watch, to listen, we're going to be there for you. So again, join us, and definitely, even some of these questions that we're posed to us and that we just kind of talked about, we'd love to hear, your feedback as well. So definitely go ahead and leave something in, the comments itself. Like, so what are the implications in 2K21 of pursuing an online MBA? Like, how do you feel about that? Go ahead and leave some comments. And if you're a leader out there, if you've been in the workforce for a long time, like, how do people in leadership really look at that graduate status, and how much does it mean to you? We'd love to hear your opinion about that as well. So make sure that you go ahead and drop that in there for us. And then pay attention for the next episode that we have coming up, where Devon and I will be discussing the difference between behavior versus outcome-based goals. Still that time of year, so we're still going to dive into that some more. And again, the difference between behavior and outcome-based goals. And it's important for you to know the difference, especially, again, if you're really trying to make sure that you not just set goals and write them, but really achieve your goals as you move forward in 2021. So that is it from us, my friend, Devon Watts Jr., myself, Jimmy Gonzalez Jr. Again, thank you for being here with us. And as always, God bless and stay encouraged.
Rage on that beat, going crazy.
You have just listened to the Legacy and Leadership podcast, hosted by Jimmy Gonzalez and Devon Watts. Thank you, and we hope that you live, lead, and leave a legacy worth remembering. Until next time.